I thought we'd recap some of the things that we've talked about in the past.
Sure.
Because we have new listeners, of course, from time to time, who may not have heard your previous visits. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it? Because I know that you've switched from the mortgage business to do this. And it's very special. Why don't you tell the folks in your own words what's going on?
Well, I'm an attorney, and I'm helping people, working really primarily in helping people to renegotiate their mortgages or modify their home loans is really the buzzwords that are going around lately. And so I'm helping people who have suffered a hardship and who are unable for whatever reason to make their mortgage payments and don't want to lose their house and just really want to know, can I get help? What do I need to do to get help? And how do I go about this? A lot of people are trying to do it on their own, and can you do it on your own? Absolutely. How many people are successful doing it on their own? Very few, because it's a big job. And when you're, trying to make a living and trying to do what you can do to keep your household and your family going, you really need somebody who knows what they're doing and can really get in there and deal with the banks and understand what their process is and how they operate. And I think that that's what makes me different than any other attorney working in this field. Some really smart attorneys working in this field that don't have mortgage experience. I was in the mortgage business for 7 years. I've had a license for 8 years. I still have the license, although I'm not really doing the loans anymore. I just keep up on what's going on. So understanding what the underwriting criteria is and what investors are really looking for when they make loans makes you really be able to understand what they're looking for when they're looking to renegotiate the terms of the mortgage and why they say yes to someone and why they say no to somebody else.
Tell me, what are the signs? What does a homeowner look for, or should they notice that says, "Boy, I better call Monica Centeno"?
Well, if you're having if you're having a difficulty making your payment now, if you know that your loan is going to adjust and you're going to have difficulty making your house payment, if you've suffered a reduction in hours at work or a reduction in pay, if you've had to take in anyone, a family member, to help them because they've suffered and they've lost. I know I have a lot of clients who take in their parents or a sister or a brother, and it causes a financial burden because that relative isn't working, and that's a hardship, something that puts you in a position to be unable to afford your mortgage.
Does a client have to be behind in their mortgage to come to you?
No, they don't have to be. But I think it's important to point out that the servicer of a mortgage and the owner of a mortgage are not necessarily the same person. We've all heard of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but no one's ever made a house payment to them. They have banks who work and service the loans. They collect the payments and provide the customer service. And between those two, there's a contract. And sometimes those contracts say you have to be late.
Monica, I'm concerned that, in times like these, whenever you get to a crisis situation, out of the woodwork pop all these people who are there to help you. Oh, yes, I'm here, Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll fix it. I've seen, for example, and it really, really bothers me, I don't have a great love for lawyers anyway, but the fact is that I've seen all these lawyers all of a sudden now are handling loan modifications, that never did that before.
Yes.
And other companies coming out of the woodwork. That's got to be scary for the consumer. What do you look for? How should the consumer determine who to speak to about this and get a good deal or the right deal?
Well, I think it's important to make the distinction between an attorney and a company. An attorney really is the only one who is licensed to help someone. This is a contract renegotiation. And the bank certainly has an attorney, and you need one too. And even if the attorney isn't necessarily experienced in mortgage, they're well versed in contract and contract provisions, and that is who you want to help you. The other thing that I'll point out about an attorney is, it costs us a hefty chunk of change to get a license to practice law, and we're not really going to sacrifice that for your $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 for your, the fee for your loan modification, whatever it is the attorney is charging. They have a whole lot more to lose than rip you off for that small amount of money in comparison to the license.
Okay, but let's call it a level playing field. Let's say that as a general rule, you really need to speak to an attorney for this.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. Okay.
Absolutely.
So now we have all these attorneys out there, and they're all advertising all of a sudden that they do this home loan modification business. Personally, that scares me. I mean, here's a guy who was doing ambulance chasing type law, and all of a sudden he's now doing this. Should I be concerned? I mean, how do I find the right attorney?
Well, I think it's important to just interview a few attorneys and go with someone that you feel comfortable and that's going to be diligent. I mean, it really is like I said, it's a contract renegotiation, and somebody who is diligent will take the time to learn and move forward. I belong to an organization called the Loan Modification Attorneys of Nevada, and we work to educate other attorneys in town on how to go about doing loan modification. They come to continuing legal education classes. We have an organization. We meet together so that we can all exchange information, and really because they want to give the best service to the client. So a professional is going to take the time to do that, as distinguished between or from a loan modification company, who are full of loan officers who understand mortgage, have no ability to practice law, have no income anymore, and now they need to make money. So they have experience contacting the bank and negotiating with the bank, but really no education in terms of the legal aspect of what is going on to be able to really advise the client, and can get the client in a whole lot more trouble. Even though they may understand the mortgage product a little bit better than the attorney can figure it out very quickly, calling and just asking the questions and getting advice from other people. I mean, if we don't know something, we call someone who's an expert and they give us some advice, and we get the education as an attorney that we need. A loan modification company is more concerned with how am I going to make money when I couldn't make money in the loan business, I think is really more of what's going on there. Unless you have a nonprofit company who's really just reaching out to underprivileged or people who can't really afford to pay an attorney, and they're licensed and they're a nonprofit and really just want to help somebody in the community.
And you're very effective, actually, in what you do. You have a nice good news story about one of our listeners who had contacted you, right? And you saved him a whole lot of money. Yeah,
we actually had somebody come in from the first show. They called in and or were listening and called my office and came in, and we did the evaluation, and I accepted their case. I don't take cases I don't think I can get done. So, just would rather tell you no from the beginning than take your money and tell you no later. To me, that's a bad business practice. But they came in, I accepted the case, we went to work on it, and they'll be coming in for us to go over the paperwork, but we saved them about $980 a month on their mortgage.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, and they really are just now in a much better position. They can keep their home. They can provide for their family. It just gives them a lot of security. Just, it brings so much more than just bring the house payment down.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago that you will take on a client if you believe you can be effective for them.
Yes.
And you're prepared to turn them away if you know you can't, not just take their money.
Correct.
That's pretty ethical. I appreciate that and respect that. But mortgage modifications are not for everybody, right?
No, they're not for everybody. If you're upside down and you have a 30-year fixed and you have no hardship, so you're making the same money, even if the only thing that's really happened to you is that you lost value in your house, you're not a candidate for a loan modification. Because really what a loan modification is, or somebody who qualifies for a loan modification, is you have to have a hardship, and a hardship is something that happens that affects your finances monthly, that makes you unable to make your mortgage payments. The house could go up or down in value, and if your cash flow every month is the same, you can afford the payment. That doesn't, the value of your house doesn't really affect what's going on monthly in your finances.
How flexible are these lenders?
Well, they don't really want to take a foreclosure back, so if it makes sense, they're willing to work. I think that the most difficult part of this is pushing through the servicer to get through to that person who's owning that mortgage. And I think what a lot of people leave out of the conversation is that the servicer has an interest in all of this too. They have their own set of books where maybe if they get a loan that they think is going to ultimately end up in foreclosure, it's better to get that loan off their books so they look more strong as a company than to go back to the investor and say, let's work it out.